Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Inside Lowell podcast, the gathering of the Pod Squad, coming to you from the WellPoint Studios here in downtown Lowell. Unicare is now WellPoint, new name, same commitment to its members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. And we want to thank our friends at WellPoint for helping to make our podcast possible. I want to thank all of our Inside Lowell podcast sponsors, which include the Washington Savings Bank, make the switch now to Washington Savings, TMI Properties, from affordable to luxurious apartments for all, Boston North Company, business solutions for restaurant and retail, Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell since 1925, Francis E. Preventure Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell is counted on for 41 years, and last but not least, the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. And with that, we're going to bring you the hard-hitting action and excitement of another Pod Squad. Guys, you know, as they say, timing is everything in life.
Oh, yeah.
And who would have known when we booked this podcast schedule on the calendar a month or so ago, right? Was it a month or longer?
Longer.
That we finally decided on this. We were going to do it the 24 hours after the city council just beautifully imploded for all of us to see on TV. And then this morning, another podcast I had scheduled a month ago, Kim Scott, who was right in the middle of the fray, coming on in. What will we talk about today, folks?
I don't know. Any ideas? I mean,
I got a couple. First, let's start by introducing the Pod Squad. Left to right, you know him as the guy behind Low Live Feed Forum, Jack Mitchell.
Otherwise known as social media.
Social media guru, the hyphen, Michaela Hondras McCarthy, now the the chairperson of the Sustainability
I'm the chair
Council. You've gotten a promotion. Congratulations,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
My pleasure.
Good to have you here, and of course the always irreverent Batch.
Just Batch.
Here as well.
No positive affiliations.
To wreak havoc. It's good to have you here. We haven't done this in a while, and we've gotten smart. We're now booking out on schedule, like my haircuts 2 and 3 months in advance, so that we have it scheduled. So we'll be back here in July. We'll get an August date before we leave here tonight. And
look at us for being so organized.
We're going to be organized here. Finally, a year and a half into Inside Lowell, we're getting a little organization. So, all right, let's get right to it.
I do have some breaking news.
What do you got?
Oh, God.
So it hasn't been confirmed, but apparently the city council Christmas party may be canceled.
Why?
They couldn't figure out the Secret Santa procedures, and they just think it got too much for them to do, and they just decided to cancel it.
Well, they could have just asked the solicitor.
Yeah, they couldn't get a ruling on the rules of the Yankee swap.
No one can agree on who would put the star on top of the tree.
Yeah, there was too many things to work out. They went to executive committee, and it just became a thing.
So I want to start with what everybody's talking about from last night's meeting. No surprise there. What thoroughfare should we rename Shannon Lally Boulevard?
I know the street. What's the name of the street?
Should it be John Street, Merrimack? Should we just rename Merrimack Street?
Which street was Molly's before? Molly K's on. What was that on?
Is that Middlesex? Is that the end of Middlesex?
Well, it's like that little loop that goes around. Is that still Middlesex? That'd be a great street
It's
to name.
where the Boys and Girls Club is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a great
So you want
Lally
to name that Shannon Lally Boulevard?
Yeah.
Lally
Way.
That has a really nice sound to it.
So when we finally get the homeless shelter over there, the name will already be there.
Jackson.
No, it should be the one by the Igno Alley there that comes off of the high school and goes over to.
Yeah, not Kirk Street, but what is it? Not Page, the one in between Page and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, what is? I like that.
Well, that's where he used to habitate.
That was his last kind of hangout.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
But for those who don't know what we're talking about, a speaker last night, and I actually know the guy who was speaking, and I know his background story.
He's interesting.
He's a very interesting dude. He's come from the depths, and he looks like he's worked his way up to something, and he's trying really hard to be an advocate, especially for the homeless in the city, and I admire that. He's also trying to do some things for youth through boxing, etc. And all well and good. I'm just afraid last night he completely destroyed whatever chance he had of being a voice for them by saying we should either name streets or monuments after the homeless. I'm sorry, Brandon, but that was a bridge too far.
I mean, a lot of people knew Shannon. Like, why not?
Well,
Honestly,
there's the whole irony of naming permanent structures after transient people.
maybe not like statues and stuff, but streets. Who cares? Like, honestly, like there's so many street names to go around. Like just put one. I don't care. I have no problem with it. I personally have no problem with it.
I wouldn't advocate for it, but he does, and I respect that. I think what the overarching thing is that he just talks about vulnerable communities and that we shouldn't just shit on them. That they're, in a way, that's what Donna from the old Owl Diner, what was that lady's name?
Oh, Shanahan, Mary Beth Shanahan.
Mary Beth. Sorry, ma'am. It was, she talked about how they're somebody's kids, right? And sometimes when we get plagued by these problems that don't seem to go away, we tend to punch down and, unless you're, say, Councilor Gitzier and you want to talk about the governor and the congresswoman, and the city council seems to generally want to point up at why we're not getting resources to deal with this problem. Now, Lowell's doing the best it can. I think, what's the kid's name again?
Brandon
Wright?
Brandon Wright, yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk to that kid. He's got his shit in one bag, and I hope he can hold it together, and I hope he can continue his advocacy. I think he needs to be a little bit more pragmatic and less ideological, but he's got good things to say, and he can sell it.
Yeah, and it looks like there was a Councilor Robinson who said maybe we should get him on a commission of some sort to be an advocate since he's been in that position, which again I'm all in favor for. You just gotta drop that to me was just a silly statement. And the other thing that struck out of me, I've never seen Councilor Noon that angry, unless you were talking about one of those divisive issues from back, the Hun Manet visit, and even the Sister City thing from last year. He was bad last night, Councilor Noon. I'm like, whoa, Brandon! I almost wanted to text Brandon and say, you've accomplished something very rare, getting Councilor Noon that fired up.
Was he very against naming the street? Is that why?
No. This was about the dirt bikes and and all that stuff, and he called out Councilor Noon for being a co-sponsor of the motion, and Councilor Noon was having none of it when it was his turn to speak. So.
Emotions were high last night. It was like a full moon or something.
The heat, the humidity.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to see Vesna mad, you can talk about how Rita Young got jammed up when it was his turn, and how other people are getting lots of wiggle room in how they're doing what they're doing. Then you'll see Vesna mad, I think.
Is that our segue to the...
See how I did?
To the next topic.
I've been learning
Very good.
How long ago was that, though?
It was a while ago when
at least
way more cooking.
5 or something like that, or
Was it that far? Was it that long
it was
ago?
a while ago that Rita Young was first elected.
When the good old boys were in
And
thick,
then,
right? This was pre-Bernie Lynch.
well, his case was different than the rumored case now. He was
Everything's
receiving
always different.
he was receiving a promotion. Well, yeah, everything is a case by case basis, and
Yeah, it is.
I mean, to me, the Ethics Commission. I've been saying this forever. The Ethics Commission the whole process is a joke. The fact that they won't issue a ruling and won't do it publicly, so you just got to kind of take somebody's word for it. Like, what's the point of
There
having
are
an Ethics
other
Commission?
communities do things like other communities have the person involved sign an affidavit saying that they spoke with or I think Danny's been talking about he got a written letter. So I think it varies depending upon the situation. Sometimes you pick up a desk lawyer at the Ethics Commission that just gives you kind of a verbal, and maybe sometimes you get a written statement from the Ethics Commission.
Why wouldn't everything be written? So we're just supposed to take someone's word for it. That and I'm not questioning anybody for saying
good
I
point.
checked and they said yes, but I mean, you should at least put verification. They made a ruling, right?
Can I ask like a dumb?
Put it in writing.
This is a dumb question, but whether or not it's made public or not, right? Like, isn't the outcome itself public? Like, so you can kind of understand which way they went on certain things depending on what the outcome is, right?
No, because I mean, I could theoretically see a scenario where somebody says, "No, I got a ruling in my favor," accepts a job, promotion, whatever is in question, and they really didn't. And unless somebody files a complaint with the ethics commission, what's going to happen to them?
Yeah, like some people, you get a yes or no, but then it's
But then you don't have to follow the yes or no.
No, but there's stipulations a lot of times. You can't.
What if you just lie about it?
What if, okay, so say I want a job, I have to ask for the ethics committee first. They say, no, you can't have that job. And then I go to the city and I say, they said, fine, hire me. And the city can say, yes, sure. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's apparently how it works. Or, they can say, yes, you may take this job, but under, is it 6 months? Is one thing I've heard 30 days. I've heard nothing because he never, as long as he resigns immediately, because it's a brand new job. I've heard that as well.
This feels like asking, like mom saying, go ask dad, and dad says yes, and dad says no, and then you tell mom, dad said yes, let me have the cookie, whatever.
Exactly. You've eaten the cookie, and it's too late to put it back in the
Is the ethics commission's office right next to the governor's council?
I mean,
I don't
even know like who's even on it and what's the.
I've been railing about this for years. The first time I asked if somebody on this, going back to my radio days, I asked somebody, "Did you have a written ruling?" Like, oh no, they don't issue written rulings.
There's obviously way too much wiggle room here, right? Can we agree that there's too much wiggle room?
Yeah, it's not clear.
It's not clear, right? And so there are people that are exploiting the wiggle room. Because from what I can gather, and I've been sort of pecking around at this, I don't want to give the impression, not that you were trying to intentionally give that impression, that it's like a board that a piece of paper goes and says, does John Mitchell have an issue with this? And they all, they take a vote for and four against.
Right? That'd be a great idea.
Often,
I thought that's how it went. To
Democracy?
be honest, that's kind of how I thought it went. To be honest with you,
often it's just an individual that picks up the phone when the phone rings, and they render a decision.
Yep.
And more often than not, the advice that's given, from what I can gather, is if you really sense that there's an issue here of that could cast a impropriety, what's that, a perception of impropriety, then just walk away from it. All right. But when you're dangling potentially a bump in retirement of $50,000 a year, it's not so easy to just brush it off.
It would help if you had a written ruling.
It certainly would, because then you would run that up the flagpole. You'd put a billboard in Centerville, right, holding it up saying, I'm in the clear. Okay. People can argue about things like resume, competency, and whether we actually have a transparent hiring process and all of that. And the city side can dodge things and say, well, the school side did this, or the school side can dodge it and say the city side did this. Because I think I'd emphasize the idea of wiggle room. And those that know how to make the most of the wiggle room that's available to them.
I mean, find me any system, any rule, any procedure. And if there's a loophole, somebody will find it. That's no surprise, especially if there isn't a clear cut thing. For those wondering what on earth we're talking about, I mean, everybody's been talking about it at this point, and I heard it on the radio this afternoon. Ryan Johnston was throwing names out there. The rumor on the street, and has been for probably 2 months now, is that City Councilor John Leahy is going to get a job in the school department. Some type of maintenance job, and then he will leave the council.
I drank a couple of beers and I've got sorry kidneys.
All right, we'll get you back, coward. We'll drag him back in. He will leave the council and go to work here. And now the battle is, well, can he do it? If he can, is there a cooling off period? If there is a cooling off period, is it 30 days? Is it 60 days? Is there none or whatever? So I've heard all of that. My latest info is none of it is relevant right now because he hasn't gotten a job, but the job is open. There have been interviews conducted for the job, but to my knowledge, no, as of today, no decision has been made. And to my information, no concrete ethics ruling has been handed out either to anybody. So that's kind of where we are in this. The propriety of it, before we get into how that touched off, last night's city council meeting and exposed what's been simmering underneath the surface now for, well, I'll argue since probably early last fall. But is there something wrong with a city councilor getting a job in the school department if he immediately leaves a city council seat?
No.
I mean, if their qualifications are there and they're the best person for the job, I don't have an. And if they're the best person for the job, right? You can make all sorts of assumptions about what kind of connections they might have as a city councilor, but
That could be
there might also
that could be a plus though.
could be a plus. And they might know certain ins and outs, and they care about the city. Obviously, if they've been serving as a city councilor, so they might do a very good job at the job. I would argue that you have to make sure there's not like preferential treatment. If someone else has better skills and they're applying for the job, and I don't know if you would you consider, like, city budget wise, right? If you're hiring a city councilor and now they become eligible, and I don't know if this is the case in this situation, and now because they're hired as a city employee, they probably become eligible for some other sort of like pension benefits. You mentioned 50,000. I don't know if that's the case.
I mentioned that.
But
That was Jack. Welcome back, Jack. Nice to
Thank you.
have
Thank
you
you.
back.
do you
Appreciate your
evaluate? Do you evaluate that, and can you discriminate against someone?
No, that'd be like considering not hiring somebody because they're going to take the family option in your insurance. It's got to be. It can't be part of the hiring.
Yeah, not here.
So the question we asked while you
That's
stepped
true.
out was, should a city councilor be able to take a job within government, school department in this particular case, as long as they leave the job, as long as they leave their elected position?
I think there's law that covers this. I mean, we're not the city solicitor or the ethics commission. I heard Senator Kennedy talk about a 6-month cooling off period on funeral show,
City life.
city life.
They get mad when you call it the funeral show.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I have a huge look. John McDonough did, a man of his sort of age with technology, the stuff that he's done, and new media. He was for Lowell a pioneer.
Yes, you are.
So mad respect for
Yes, it-
John, but it is done it's in his home. It's not done in the funeral. But Senator Kennedy talked about a 6-month cooling off period.
Which somebody else from the delegation had also said to me, they believe it's a 6-month cooling off.
There's statute, right? But usually statute is there's variations based on your charter and stuff, and knowing which statute to apply always gets a little sticky because there's so much wiggle room.
Yeah, and that's so. There have been other people who might know who've said to me, as long as he leaves right away, he can start. Because it's not an existing, it's not a promotion. I guess there's language, and I am no expert on this, so I'm just what I hear from other folks. There's specific language about promotions. There's specific language about working under direct supervision, where technically, if you're going from the city side to the school side, you can make an argument that you're not, right? Even though everything's kind of intertwined. And
Yeah.
so but these things should be decided. These shouldn't be like
Maybe not
different people have different things and you got to go get a ruling. I mean, this should be spelled out in law clearly, not just for Lowell, because I'm willing to bet this has come up in many other communities as well. And
This is
probably
not-
many times. It's not something just for Lowell.
No, but we do it on steroids, I'd say.
I mean, I could see a really positive.
Which case?
The exploitation of the wiggle room. I mean, like, look, I'm newish to Lowell, right? I haven't done a study or written, like a Dick Howe blog.
Well,
Hold it together, man. Hold it
If you had asked me
I'm only laughing because bad.
who would come out with those two words, I mean, I'm looking right at.
No, it's not a Freudian slip or anything. Look, I'm not writing. What is that thing called that he does now? Substack, right? Which I hear is the new thing, and and he was at it.
Long form digital journalism.
Yeah. All right, so
Also known as an email.
it's
Blog.
we have plenty of situations or examples where the wiggle room has been exploited. There's a lot of fuss about it. If we want to talk, we could just talk about when Bernie Lynch cut off benefits for all the people that were on the boards and commissions, and all the folks that were on the tit quit like that. Not all of them, but the vast majority of them in protest because he pulled a benefit away. So,
I didn't know he did that.
which was costing the city lots and lots of money, right? So now there was a whole population that was cut off from any access to this wiggle room. I think another thing that you have to take into consideration of it's the city side, the school side, is a lot of the funding comes out of the city side for the school, and then a lot of the there's creations of positions that are voted on by the city council, and is there this potential for someone sort of laying a groundwork for something before them, right? Which all has sort of plausible deniability, also known as wiggle room.
But where's the wiggle room? I mean, the anybody that's, I know there's been cases in the past where it was questionable what the ethics commission came down with, but that's the ethics commission. Like, the wiggle room is you still have to go to the state to find out if you can do these things or not. There's no wiggle room. It's whatever they say goes.
It's because things aren't.
But we don't know
down.
what we say. That's what Teddy was saying 10 minutes ago.
Things aren't
We
written
don't know
down
what they say.
as policies, so there is wiggle room.
Right, that's the fault.
There's
But
no mandated, like everybody knows there's a 6-month cooling off period. Like there's none of that is written down.
so that said, if wiggle room doesn't imply illegal,
No.
and that you're able to do it, so why are we getting mad at a specific case when the real issue is the fact that government is full of wiggle room? And I mean, I'm a challenge on the fact that Lowell has perfected it, because
I didn't say, I just say they flex it more.
you focus on it more,
Well,
but
that's where
it happens everywhere.
I focus on it,
and
yes.
I'd be willing to bet it happens
So is that
even
thing,
more undercover in places that don't have
does that say we
media
should
coming
allow,
up.
are you saying we should allow it? Because I'm pretty confident, Teddy,
wiggle room?
that I'm pretty confident that part of the reason why in January no one said boo about the motion that Corey Robinson put on that passed unanimously under voice vote, not roll call, right? And why there was a very different disposition is because something tangible materialized between January and now. And then now all of a sudden there was a group of people that had to decide what was more important. They're posing for ethics or their affiliation to deals or whatever, their lack of integrity. All right, I'm going to go with that word for a while, that they're and go ahead. The lack of integrity in dealing with the matter now. And if you ask them on the campaign trail, is cronyism a bad idea? They will say, absolutely, positively, we won't tolerate it in the city of Lowell. And then when it comes around, it's wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I'm looking the other way, no problem.
So this is the part that I take exception to and have taken exception to.
And thank you for giving me the time.
Of course, if you're going to get yourself in trouble, I'm going to help you. What's cronyism? What's nepotism? What's political favors? What's somebody knowing somebody and getting a job because of it, whether it happens anywhere or whatever? If you want to talk about somebody incompetent getting a job,
Or keeping a job.
or keeping a job, great. Somebody who has qualifications and could be very good at the job, why wouldn't you hire somebody that you're familiar with?
That you know.
Why wouldn't you hire somebody,
Yeah.
And And
I agree with that.
And I would beg to wager that every single person, those screaming about it now, those screaming about it in the past, have all used a connection to get a job at some point or another in some community.
Or to hire
Maybe
someone.
not you.
No,
But
I did, right? At the Athenian corner.
Yeah, that's private industry. But that's a perfect example.
What's the distinction though? Because one is taxpayer funded, so there's a much higher threshold for lack of impropriety than in the private sector, right? And I also knew that if my daughter didn't pan out, you would have figured out some way to let me know that
we would have
didn't
given her
work.
more shifts until she left. But
Oh, yeah,
that's-
you would have buried her.
So I wasn't going to go there, but that's an example. So I hired somebody with no experience over people who may have had better qualities because I knew her father and I knew
There's less unknown.
I knew a little bit about
Less
the work
unknown.
ethic, and I know that if something needed to be said to her, I'd probably just go to Dad and
But
he would
that's
say
worth
it.
that's
rather
worth
than me.
something.
Yeah.
That is worth something to you.
So why is it wrong if it happens in government?
To me, it's a separate issue. Like,
And who doesn't know somebody in the city of Lowell? Because
Fine.
that's the other thing. If you didn't hire people who knew somebody, who would you be hiring?
can I ask a question? Do you think this person or any other person would be going for this job, like making a jump from city councilor, or if the benefits weren't tied to it?
What do you mean?
Oh, we're going back to the text. Yes.
The text?
We had a whole text stream, right,
yeah.
where we talked about disconnecting PERAC from serving on the city council or the city manager.
Right.
That's
just
a big conversation.
but it's associated, right? Because
Right.
there is some of that in this situation.
Right, it's the cherry on top.
So let's change the system. But why are we focusing on select people
Right.
who are doing things? That's my whole problem with this. If the four of us want to gather with the Lowell City Council and change the pension system and the retirement system, and you're going to need to go to the state, by the way, you're probably going to need to completely give an enema to Beacon Hill to get anywhere near that. Maybe sign up and
I don't know.
with
Maybe they-
Auditor DeZoglio to get something done. But if the system is what the system is, now you're in a position where you start cherry picking who you're going to criticize for taking advantage of the system in a way that, why wouldn't you want to better your lot in life? Why wouldn't you want a higher paying job? Why wouldn't you want a job that's going to give you a better pension if it was available to you? You're stupid to not do that. I don't want people who aren't looking to better their position in life doing that. If they're incompetent, okay,
Why wouldn't you want to rob a bank and get more money so that
because it's against the law.
Okay, but some of these things that we're talking about are considered unethical. Now, let's talk about punishment. If I rob a bank, I'm going to jail for a long time, right? But if I finagle the wiggle room and I get what, a $3,000 fine by the ethics commission, and
Yeah.
do you lose your job? I don't really know. There's punishment, but if I'm going to bump my retirement by multiple tens of thousands of dollars, maybe I'm willing to pay $3,000 and be like,
So the system is broken.
Yeah, but-
we should fix the system.
I mean, if you listen
Okay.
to the mayor this morning when he was on the Nick Dennis show, when he was talking about the letter that he got from the ethics commission, right? It outlined what he could and couldn't do. It was telling him what areas that if this comes up, you're not allowed to do that. Like I don't think they just send you like a circle yes or no note through the mail. Like they give you the guidelines.
So it is really-
It's intentionally left vague.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to, at least take advantage of it to better yourself, then what's
The other thing too is like I don't really,
tell me about you.
and I don't really see what is this. What is it? The deputy of facilities, whatever the job is that Leahy might be going for. I mean, what possible? How much damage, or let's say he was trying to do something nefarious, which I doubt he is. Like, what possible? Where's the conflict? Like, what can he do from that position? I mean, it's a separate. The city only pays like pennies on the dollar on and that all that money
not
comes.
anymore. change a talking point.
Well, all right, quarters on the dollar, but most of the money.
They bumped up their salaries. Did you miss that?
No,
part?
but the state pays for most of it. The city.
You mean for the school funding?
Yeah, like the city council has some impact on the overall school budget, but most of it's
monopoly money, so it's okay.
oh, for fuck's sake. You just first of all, by the way, you called 9 out of the 11 counselors basically that they had no integrity,
Sure.
and that's just
At any given, well, say whatever you like.
at any given
I
time.
know them pretty well. At any given time, it's very it's very sort of situational, right? I think, and I wrote about it, right? Because I wanted to preempt sort of this meeting. I think generally they're all well-intentioned, decent people, right? But in certain circumstances, they are exploiters of wiggle room as much as anybody for their own purposes. Sometimes they want to try to do
All 11 of them.
all of them. Yeah. Oh, you think I'm going to exempt like the?
Okay.
Another thing is I'm not drinking with them down at the Athenian Corner, right? I drink with them sometimes at the Worthen, but lately I haven't been going over there because it's not palatable to me.
By the
Also,
way, can we keep mentioning the Worthen because they are a sponsor here at Inside Lowell? And they got a shout out in Councilor Robinson's response to the podcast.
They always have very fresh Heinekens there too. Good growers.
It's the most historic tap.
I actually like the Worthen. The Old Court's my favorite.
Excellent food, too.
Are they a sponsor?
No, they're not. So we're not going to talk about the Old Court.
So the Old Court, the Worthen,
Cobblestones we can talk about.
Cobblestones, I like that place. I like the bar. The
They're a
restaurant's a little
sponsor,
too
yeah.
bougie.
Cobblestones is a sponsor.
Cobblestones and Swabs, Cobblestones and Moonstones.
So July
Hospitality
11th,
Group.
July 11th, we're doing a 30th anniversary podcast with them.
Are we?
Well, I am. I don't know if I told you.
But this idea that city councilors should ice cream and it all smells like roses.
I'm not saying that either,
come
but
on,
it's
they're
just
human beings just like us.
So this
and they're
is-
jammed up in real life situations.
I just yeah. Go ahead.
This can be like also not just like an attack on not because not that it is, but like an attack on like lacking integrity from certain individuals, whatever. It could just be, and this happens all the time, where there's a culture over time that builds up that's like, well she did it, why can't I do it? She
It is
did
a
why can't I do
culture.
it?
It's
It's
culture.
culturally based. So why would you, if I was a city councilor and everyone does things a certain way and who cares and this is just the way things work, I'm not going to stick my hand up and say I'm deciding to not do that and just like, shoot myself in the foot, and who cares? I think it could be like a culturally accepted thing within the workings of the government.
Come on in. The water is fine.
I see nothing wrong with people like a counselor or a school committee person going from the elected seat to a working in the school department of the city or vice versa. I think it's fine.
The other way around, I think
I can see-
I think we should encourage that. If someone's working in the school system, knows about all the things that are happening in the school system, and sees things that they want to change, and decides I'm going to go for school committee or I'm going to go for city councilor, we should encourage that.
Then they got to leave though. I think.
We
But I
have
don't
two.
think they
We
should-
have two
That
city
they can do,
councilors.
as long as they don't collect one of their paychecks.
We have two city councilors that did exactly that. They used to work for the city. Now they're city councilors. All right. They're not in sync with a majority of the council at this point.
I think they bring a lot to it.
All right. We do,
Yeah.
or you do. I assume we do, right?
Yeah.
Although, I don't know. I'm not going to speak for you, but they don't always vibe. Although it's interesting, who I get a sense there's a lot of frustration. Even myself with Councilor Gitsia, because I think his message is always very spot on and positive. Well, positive is the right word, accurate, but his positivity lacks, right? Kind of like I'm
Talk to Paxton Rec.
I called out the councilor's general integrity, right, or lack thereof in situational circumstances. I was actually just talking to someone about how it was inappropriate for Councilor Gitsia to go into that commission board, right, the planning board, whatever it was, and sort of make a broad accusation, right?
The zoning board.
the ADUs.
Yeah. And so, and although I'm just kind of doing
But he
it,
did it as a citizen.
yeah, that's right. A citizen.
So, which is a nice little segue into what transpired last night. And we've known about the undercurrent there. Some folks think the origin of it was the November, the criminal charges and the subsequent, shunning and tabling of motions and whatever. But I think we're all aware that there's been an undercurrent here since well, election season last year, the ADU debate, you started to see it really get personal. And then I think the mayoral thing was the final straw to that then led into November through January and whatnot. And they've, kudos to them for keeping it hidden this long.
Hidden.
It
hasn't boiled over.
It's been, there's been some stuff on social media, but it's over the last month, we're now getting the word cronyism, the words nepotism. You're starting to get, photobombing of parks and rec, and it's
that's been happening a long time. I think you're creating sort of a timeline that isn't accurate.
Well, we had a pictures from up in the Highlands of a veterans memorial that was damaged.
That's been going on for a long since the district councilors have
true.
Taken on.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of them opt to make a call directly to the assistant city manager and handle it sort of so that there isn't an awareness of things. And some of them, I think, have tried that. And I'm not saying that I think every time the assistant city manager gets called, he acts on it. But there's a difference between, and if you look at the motions, being a reactive city government, reacting to complaints on social media by citizens, right, residents, and motions by councils or phone calls, that you actually have a programmatic approach, which has existed in the past based on the sort of testimony I've heard from previous city employees.
Well, it's been a while, though.
All right. But that has fallen by the wayside. So now it's much more of if you call me, I'll fix it. But otherwise, there's wiggle room.
I think it takes a while to fix that.
Are all the city government problems and inefficiencies confined to one department or under the general DPW umbrella? Because if we're going to have an inside discussion here, let's talk about it. This is strictly about last night, and I will argue the feud between the Councilor Robinson and Councilor Leahy, which is at the undercurrent of this, strictly about the Parks Department.
I'm going to say something. Can I do a palate cleanser?
And that's what the focus has been on social media.
Yeah.
Non-stop photos of parks and,
can I say,
supposedly bad conditions that, they don't look great, but I'm going to tell you they're not just Lowell's conditions. They are everywhere. And I've seen it firsthand in a nice rich suburb like Chelmsford where my son plays. And I don't see councilors or select people in Chelmsford posting photos to make their town employees, mid-level management, or however high up the ladder you want to go, look bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the frustration, and I kind of heard that from Kim Scott this morning. I think that's where she and Councilor Dakota, who kind of spoke up, are kind of said, all right, enough. We're tired of being called a part of a corrupt system, for lack of a better term. Call it cronyism, call it nepotism, but it all implies the level of impropriety and dare I say, corruption. Is that a fair assessment?
I think what they're kind of like sick of is like...
You're going to have to answer that question, Mitchell.
Whole court.
There's a difference between like push-pull management, right? Like if you're trying to like negatively motivate someone with like, look how bad you're doing, do better. That's a tough place to be over and over. You can do that a couple times, but if you're, if you kind of give that a rest a little bit, maybe there's some more breathing room for things to improve where people aren't just like being knocked down all the time for the parks not being pristine all the time.
I mean, I don't mind there being a mix, though. I don't mind having a counselor or two that does it that way, and a couple other ones that are, kind of go the more traditional way. I just think they could all probably use a little bit more, I don't want to say, I think thicker skin's a little, well, maybe, like, I don't know, like they're not getting along. There's clearly a lot of frustration between them all. The sources of that, I think, there's a lot of different reasons, right? A lot of different causes for that. But I mean, the posting and all that, it sometimes you need it, sometimes it's effective. but I can also see the negative impact it's going to have. And there's consequence for, no matter what you do, there's consequences for it. And when there's consequences, you got to look at it and say, well, I can kind of understand why they're doing this.
Post it once, yeah, it makes its point. Post it again and again
Diminishing
and again,
diminishing return.
and now
Yeah.
the messenger starts to become the issue. And that's
You just scroll by it.
That's my biggest.
oh, here we go again.
That's my biggest.
Yeah.
It's making, and it's also kind of. Did he lock himself out?
Yeah, he did.
It's making the.
Or he's coming back to get his phone.
It's making the city look bad. I'm gonna take a minute here to remind you that you're watching the Pod Squad here at Inside Lowell. We're coming to you from the WellPoint Studios here in downtown Lowell. Thank you to our friends at WellPoint and all of our podcast sponsors: Washington Savings Bank, TMI Properties, Boston North Company, Mahoney Oil, Francis E. Prevention Insurance, and the Massachusetts Pirates. And thank you to all of the Inside Lowell sponsors as well for helping to make our site possible and all of our podcasts possible. Jack is back. Michaela's back. You locked yourself out of the office.
I did. I didn't the first 2 times. But
What a rookie mistake.
You're not even a
So we're getting to the point where I said before you came back in and Michaela came to get you that I think the posting a critique once, okay, although I'll tell you where I think it may not be the best tack for elected officials to do it, but when it happens a second post, a third post, now it starts to border on, I don't want to call it badgering of the workforce, but it certainly looks like the politics of personal vendettas to me.
Right. So what I think you're saying is that the guy that runs the parks, whatever, blah blah blah, some guy, right?
That's the guy squarely in
Shannon
Cohen, who I wouldn't know if he was sitting there
I think
right
I
now.
met him once. He seemed like a decent guy, right? Like I don't know him from a hole in the wall, right?
I wouldn't know him, but there's clearly a concerted effort at this
And he
point to
got
make him look bad.
He got a job that Corey Robinson had applied for and didn't go.
And supposedly
right?
John Leahy was the guy who got him the job, which explains what you see, what you're starting to see a little bit now.
Okay, so
right?
let's pause now.
Okay.
Right? Because what you just said that was there was some finagling of somebody getting a job over another person, right?
We need a whiteboard.
And then we're gonna, we're gonna focus more on the
relationship.
vendetta of Corey Robinson versus the finagling of John Leahy. But this is the type of things that happens. I know that John is very fond of taking orange paint and putting on circles of potholes to be selectively filled and addressed by the city government or whatever. It's the question.
What?
You can't keep up.
Wait. So we just need. So
There was a story years ago that Council Leahy went out and actually circled with paint
2 years ago.
a couple of potholes that he wanted the streets department to repair and that they got repaired.
Yeah, because
as opposed to all the other potholes in
by
the
the
city.
Parks Department on overtime. But
But the potholes hurt the heating elements in the streets of Belvedere because the streets are heated.
the question is about vendetta, right?
Yes.
And so, I mean, if we're going to use names, right, I'll say, and I don't care if you believe me or not, I know based on multiple conversations and a variety of sort of levels of sobriety, Corey Robinson has always maintained if things were taken care of, you would have nothing to say. All right. Your larger question was back to, is it only in that department? Right. I think one of the problems with public works is it's out in front of everybody. Everybody sees potholes. Whether somebody's dotting I's and crossing T's in the engineering department or the historical commission, right? Like, it's hard to sort of assess that, right?
Well, the law department used to be on the front page a lot. That seems to be better.
Yeah, no, the law department is kind of because the legal system, you have verdicts, right? So we can all question whether so-and-so's tact on a certain court case was good or bad after the fact, right? Hindsight being 2020. But public works, certain things are out in front of everybody.
Sure.
But you know that when you take that job, and you know that when you know that. That's
And councilors,
But why don't I see this in Chelmsford? Why? I mean, I guess you see other things in Drake and whatnot, but you don't. But in Drake, they're punching up, as you like to say. They're going after the town manager.
Because Drake is filled with people that used to be in Lowell.
You drive to Haverhill. I mean, are Haverhill streets paved with marble? I live in Chelmsford. There's a pothole that develops every spring right across my house.
I'd say we have more potholes in Lowell than Chelmsford. I live in the Highlands, very close to Chelmsford. I go both places. The potholes in Lowell are like kind of insane.
Go to any Lowell Live Feed Forum type page.
Exotic potholes of Lowell Facebook.
But
It's actually.
I know, it's pretty good.
It's a Chelmsford news group where everybody goes to do their bitching.
There's no exotic potholes of Chelmsford.
Dominate that, and you'll see it on the Drake pages. You'll see it on the Bill Ricka pages. I've seen it for other communities. I've seen Worcester. They all have this, and they all have parks that are not exactly Fenway. I don't see the elected officials kind of leading that charge. I see the John Dimity types
on social media.
On social media.
All right, so
on the council floor, yes, but you or even with a phone call, take care of it. But when you're doing it incessantly on social media, you're making your town look bad. And while. So what I wanted to tell you about, because I know you love Bernie Lynch, right? You referenced him earlier, as a matter of fact.
I did. I just said
he saved the city.
No, I didn't say that. I said he cut off the benefits to the people that were on the board.
But you like Bernie Lynch.
That's a good idea.
I figured because the state money was in the shitter. They brought in somebody to fix it, and then he spent 6 or 7 years to fix it until he was pushed out of the city manager so that Kevin Murphy could come in and top off his retirement.
Correct. Because Bernie Lynch wasn't topping off his retirement after 18 years in Chelmsford, where when he left Chelmsford, they also saw a precipitous decline in their bond rating that Paul Cohen came in and saved until Chelmsford decided
I know you know this, right?
It's not for some reason. It's 100% reported fact.
So their bond rating went down when Bernie Lynch left.
Sure, because it could be not necessarily the politics of personality, but it could be just, I don't know, something was happening on the planet in between 2006 and 2009 that caused municipalities' budgets to go to shit and caused a certain state senator to say, sacred ground is now shifting sand and the private sector can no longer.
And how much did Bernie Lynch's salary go up when he went from Lowell to from Chelmsford to Lowell?
I do believe there was an increase in it, but he got to his he got to where he wanted to go.
State rep rate to city manager rate.
But I'm not again I'm not criticizing Bernie Lynch. I think he did a very good job. But the point of this is that he was on the radio for his monthly appearance, and I had just kind of taken over doing the morning show by myself. Jack Baldwin had moved to middays and Dean to afternoons, and there was something, I can't remember if it was a gang-related story or if there was a crime story or some kind of a downtown brawl or whatever. But there was something, and I kept talking about it an awful lot. I made it the topic of the day, and he happened to come in. And during a break, he said to me, "Can you stop talking so bad about the city?" He said, your family does business in the city. You should be trying to promote the city through the radio station and whatnot." And which I thought about it. And I disagreed with him because my job as a radio host wasn't necessarily to make the city look good. I believe that, but I believe
sell advertising.
I believe there was a component that I should also promote the city and the good stuff happening in the city. There's some civic responsibility
should have a balance
to being a media entity, but to completely ignore and whitewash what was going on, I thought was wrong. That said, Bernie Lynch was doing exactly what he should have been doing. It wasn't if the city manager is now shitting on the city and talking about how bad it is, how crime infested it is, how much. And I remembered that these last couple of months as I've been watching the escalation you're basically telling the residents, the barking dogs in the community, that will now jump onto the street. Yeah, that's why I moved out of Lowell. That's why I'm moving out of Lowell. You're basically telling them your government is corrupt. You're full of incompetence in your position. And, there's nobody that's being hired should be hired. And by the way, your elected officials are incompetent. And that's where if I were advising Councillor Gittier and Councillor Robinson, I would tell them there's probably better ways to scale it back, which you have said, and you've faced the wrath for saying it. And I know, this TMZ site will face more wrath. This TMZ wannabe site will face more wrath, on social media for it. But I'm just kind of looking at it from a Bernie Lynch type perspective and what I think the role of elected officials should be. And I think some of that frustration came out last night on the part of some of the counselors who are tired of being on the receiving end of the barbs.
But then again, get your head the highest, came in first in the election.
Yep.
And I think Corey still, I don't know I feel like he still has strong support in his district. So the tactic they're using does work for them.
I think the motivation behind like shitting on the city, whatever, and I do get your point about what Bernie Lynch said to you. Like, there's a balance there, right? Like you said that too. But I think the motivation behind what they're doing is like, what's going to inflict the change that they want to see? Like, complaining sometimes, being the squeaky wheel, is the way to get change made. So there's definitely a balance, but I don't think where they're coming from is trying to shit on the city. I think they're trying to say, what is going on here where we can't, and maybe you can say like Lowell's roads are different than Chelmsford's. They're old and they have cobblestones underneath, and it's really hard to maintain them. Like you could say, you could make arguments.
You're making the case. You're defending incompetent people.
No, you can say it's a tough job. Now maybe we need to hire more people. Maybe we need to like look at how we're, making the repairs. I don't know what it is, but like I'm sure people are trying their best in the DPW department, but I'm sure there's some inefficiencies as in other places as well.
The Collins report speaks to that, right? We bring in outsiders to look at city operations, and then some of the suggestions are incorporated and others are not. It's hard to stay on a program over a period of time, all right? But the city does have certain challenges that are unique to its age. Also, there has been, it's widely touted that we are well under, or Lowell is well under its tax levy, right? Because historically, the city government has always tried to operate sort of on vapors. And the phrase kick the can down the road has been utilized over and over and over again, right? By a lot of people, but probably mostly Eric Gitzier, right? And maybe even Corey Robinson. We have Bernie Lynch brought up taxes. It wasn't popular at the time, but we had to rebuild, certain types of things to get our bond rating up. So that was a program. Kevin Murphy came in, that all came to a screeching halt, and we went back to sort of a previous process. Eileen Donahue came in. I think there were some tax increases, but it wasn't as robust.
I believe there was a 0% year under Eileen Donahue, if I don't remember.
That may be the case. That may be the case. Tom Golden has come in and
raised the bejesus out of our taxes.
And you're upset with that, but I look at that there needs to be investment. So I support his choices, right? And his sensibility that it's time to sort of pay the piper. But with that comes a responsibility to sort of deliver better services, right? Mm-hmm. You in the restaurant business, and I there was a Mexican restaurant that I used to go to over by the university. When they first started, their portions were huge and their prices were pretty low. And but they were trying to entice a customer base. But once they got a sort of solid customer base, the portions shrank. And the price no. This was.
Can we stop mentioning non-sponsors, please?
Yeah, no. This was in the 90s when I was.
The Old World. You want some great tacos? Go to the Old World or Cobblestone.
It's just
worth it.
Breakfast tacos. I think they have them at Cobblestones for brunch, and if they don't have it, Moonstones and Chelmsford
Cobblestone
does.
is an amazing brunch.
They do a very good brunch.
Amazing.
There's been a long conversation going all the way back to the beginning of district representation about improvements in mid-level management, that the ideas of the council and sort of the collaboration of the highest level of the city administration breaks down underneath the department heads. And, Corey for sure definitely gets here. And, many of these are very pro-labor, pro-city worker folks. So they're not going to blame the guys that are rank and file. They're looking at mid-level management, right? And it seems after 3.5 years of district counselors being in position, that the manager has not really taken the stick to mid-level management to get the efficiencies that are needed.
And I think that's where, it takes a while. First of all, it takes a good year to get used to a job. It takes another year to kind of figure out what's going on, and then it takes a little while to straighten things out. And after you've had, 2 managers that were here for 3 years at the most, 3-4 years, you probably accumulated a lot.
4 years each.
4 years.
You and Kevin Murphy.
So there's probably a lot of accumulation of dead weight. It's going to take a while to flush a lot of that out and get the right people in place. I think it's a little too soon to say that things haven't really, especially when a lot of my guess is a lot of the problems are the rank and file, the people right on the front line, and some of it, and some of it's the middle management.
But those problems are because management's not demanding certain things.
Well, it's probably, but it's a combination. It might be one in one place and one in the other, but it takes a while to sort the stuff out because you can't just walk in and fire people. You have to build a case, and you have to
say you're not showing up for work. There's a culture of work of making.
Right,
people
but you got to
work
document it. You got to do it. It takes a long time to fire somebody.
Not with DPW.
Could somebody say that perhaps government lends itself to these types of inefficiencies? And I'm gonna,
of course it does.
Jack off over there, but it's welcome to you. You want to remake government? Let's go. Let's go.
I think it's a reflection.
I'm with you. I will lead the
leadership.
charge. Let's remake government. Let's get the inefficiencies out. Let's get the ethics rulings in. You're shaking your head no, because to you government is sacred. Much like some of the people who will complain on the one hand, but ultimately won't attack that problem, which is generally the fact that the way government is set up with unions, associations, and whatever, and right up to mid-level management, which also has unions, do they not?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And then the higher paids,
the ordinance employees.
Yeah. So. But I don't hear anybody wanting to change it. And you know why? Truth be told, what did Jack say? What did you say, Batch? The workers, they're also the ones that more likely to live in the town and vote if they happen to lose their job or get reprimanded, and their spouses and brothers and sisters and of age voting children and grandparents and whatever. And soon enough, you get a system that's tremendously inefficient, and nobody wants to fix it because everybody wants to get reelected. And
it's not one size fits all. Like, I bet there's departments with great, if you gave these people a good leader, they'd be better. And there's some departments with a great leader that have half their work. Like, we don't know. Like, I think it's a combination. To say it's all this or all that, I think is wrong. I think it's a combination of things, and it takes a while to figure it out, sort it out. That's why when it comes to, like, when you want to hire somebody, you want to hire somebody that you know where they're coming from and if they're going to support what you're trying to do. I mean, I can see some of that. To me, when we talk about cronyism or whatever, nepotism, like, when that becomes a problem is when somebody sucks and you don't get rid of them because they're so-and-so. That's where the problem starts. It's not the hiring of it. It's if they stink, you got to get rid of them. And I think sometimes that doesn't happen enough.
Yeah,
let me just tell you who's doing a great job. Let's just cut.
There's no room for positivity in this discussion, Michaela.
The Pollard Memorial Library. Oh my God! I went to their website the other day. What an amazing website! They've got all sorts of events. There's a summer reading challenge you can go and sign up for. It's like so great. I'm telling you, go to this website. Bring Ari. There's tons of fun activities. They're really utilizing the building. They've all sorts of you can it's. They have an
Pat wants to say something.
I used to work there. I'm a big Pollard Memorial Library guy. Yeah,
I'll raise you the parking enterprise fund.
Okay. I'm just saying, Pollard Memorial Library, city workers are doing a great job. It's possible.
Well,
government is hard, and the rank and file will follow management. I've heard a variety of stories over the years.
You think the rank and file will follow management?
Will follow, yeah, they will. Okay. Good management knows how to handle.
I would agree with that.
All right, good management knows how to.
You think any superintendent of schools in Lowell has had control over the teachers of Lowell? Talk about the biggest single workforce in the city is our education department, and specifically teachers. right? What are there, like 1,000 of them? In the
At
city?
least.
Something.
It's
something-
superintendent
Does that-
and middle
Do
management.
you think any superintendent has control? Will
it's
the
50-50.
teachers follow the superintendent, or will the teachers follow
They follow.
ultimately what they're told by their?
They don't even do that.
I haven't heard of 100% buy-in with the UTL leadership or Paul George's, if you just don't want to say his name.
100% no,
But I heard Counselor Scott sit right here and say that she's had challenges because she lives next to a park, and there are ups and downs in this thing, right? And that she recognizes the problem. She just doesn't agree with the way her colleagues choose to resolve it. So she would rather do the quiet call and get action in a reactionary way, where Gitzier will talk until he's blue in the face about programmatic, scheduled maintenance. Everything should be on a routine and a schedule, and it should be handled that way, not reactionary to calls.
Can you? Is it possible to do that, which would be the what I believe a more productive way to do it, without calling people cronies? Calling.
Do we know that?
What's the term that Counselor Gitcher uses a lot in his writing? Friends over function.
Friends over function, yeah.
Is it possible to try to get government more efficient without alienating everybody around you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can get there eventually.
Slowly.
And by the way, I may believe that it might not be possible to do it, period.
So has the manager had enough of a breaking in period that he can start actually making changes?
I think it's already happened. If you look at there's been a lot of areas, I think, where the culture has changed and you can see improvement.
What's that seen in?
Law department for one. I think the HR department's doing really well right now. I mean, there are other ones. Those are the ones I know the most. But I think there's some stuff in the what is it? Is it the auditors? Whatever it is. One of those departments, they're making improvements. I mean, it takes a while. You can see it. There's definitely a better. I see a better attitude than I used to see. And hearing things
You're
like.
disagreeing.
I'm not saying everything's grand, but
I'm sort of adjusting to his testimony, right? So I'm not. Look, I don't want to be the 100% Debbie Downer. It's like this idea that it's black or white, right? It's always these mixtures,
right.
And so human resources was a catastrophe. There was all sorts of discussion about it in the time of sort of the development of the DEI stuff, right? And there was one of the first subcommittee meetings in the new system was a personnel subcommittee, where they went through a lot of the challenges and how interviewing and hiring was done a certain way, and what types of modernizations. I've heard a counselor said that the human resource department was 10 years behind the industry standard, but where are we at now?
They're catching up.
I think the fact that we're just having these discussions and the city councilors are having these discussions and we're really talking about the functions of city government is evidence that things are getting better. Because if things were not being talked about the way they were in prior years and all, everything's fine, we'd still have the same amount of potholes. At least we're looking at this stuff and really talking about it, some of the details. And I think that's evidence of change.
That's the beauty of district representation, is that you actually, it's definitely, I love it because you actually get to hear I think people are questioning things and you need that. I think before it was, I always say if you have a staff and all your staff love you, you're doing something wrong. Somebody should always be pissed at you.
Pretty
right?
much. Yeah.
And if if you've got two councils right now that seem to be more vocal than the rest, great. You got, at least there's more discussion. Like you said, there's more. I don't know. It just seems like it's more out front than it used to be, because everybody used to be from the same neighborhood, and as long as their streets got pulled out by the DPW, they were fine. But that doesn't happen anymore, I don't think. And it just seems like there's more of some of this conflict is good. It might be a little bit too much right now. They might want to dial it back a little bit.
Every city councilor,
because it's gotten personal.
It's gotten personal.
My biggest concern is
don't make it personal, man.
They're all big boys and girls, especially the guy at the top making the big money. But At what point does it start to become counterproductive?
When you say
I got a hunch we're getting to that point if we haven't already got there.
the guy at the top making the most money, isn't that the superintendent of schools?
Yeah. That's true.
Highest paid city. Oh yeah.
But what I saw last night made me wonder if it's now going to start to whatever semblance of doing what's best for the city is going to get thrown out the window because of the politics of personal vendettas now. I think there's too many dynamics on that council now. You know, I think Councilor Dakota made a mistake going where he went last night.
I thought it was weird that he did it on Zoom too. Like, at least be there in person. Like, just say it to someone's face.
He was. My understanding is he wasn't well, so he couldn't be there.
Well, then you should have saved it for when he could be in person.
But they like Rookie handled it well. I thought Corey handled it well.
He handled it, yeah.
Tim did handle it well. They all, the people who were actually in the room, I thought handled it really well.
The mayor did a good job.
Councilor Scott and Robinson did not handle it well. I didn't hear about it until after the meeting, but it was visible and noticeable to everybody in the room that they were going back and forth.
I didn't see it on camera.
With, not screaming, but, animated discussion, finger pointing, etc.
This is like a housewife.
And then Councilor Scott admitted it, and Councilor Robinson basically didn't deny it. He said the same thing in his statement that's in our story, which you can see online, InsideLowell.com. The story is called "Council Tensions Boil Over," and you can kind of see like a recap with it, with links to the discussion, so you can see them for yourself.
I mean, this was the '80s; they would have been throwing punches. That used to happen
before TV.
Yeah,
right.
If it was Drake in it,
they still would have.
The thing that I want to sort of with that, okay, is that councils communicate to each other outside of the transparent process of city council, right? They text each other. They text each other in groups. Mm-hmm. They have private conversations. They have group conversations. They have group chain conversations. They do all sorts of things. So, and I'm some of that is sketchy, but most of it is just the pragmatic approach to building, consensus, getting good ideas, eliminating bad ideas. But I don't want
a violation of.
That's the whole open meeting violation thing, which I think is absolutely stupid. And maybe when the only way you could communicate was by horseback, sending messages back and forth.
But let's not cherry pick how one particular, peer-to-peer, right? The microphone goes off and I'm like, yeah, go ahead, I dare you, right? Like, that's one sort of thing. And I don't think it's wise to focus on that. I think it serves to drive a certain narrative. I don't like the word bully, all right? Because some might describe what happened to, not that Councilor Robinson wasn't in a position to be vulnerable to sort of the exploits of his peer group, but when they were doing things like shutting down his motions and stuff, that that was pretty shaky ground constitutionally or charter wise, right? But they did it because whatever they were doing, right? Whether they were driven by their personal convictions or they just saw an opportunity to try to undermine this guy, they took their shots. And I don't think it's not all about that. That's baked in now. Like we can't unbreak that egg. But there's a lot of stuff. I've talked to these people for 15 years. They hate each other. They love each other. 1 minute they hate each other. 1 minute they love each other. It's a very strange, very fast and furious dynamic in the city council.
Sounds like housewives.
I wouldn't read too much into a lot of this stuff.
So you believe that they can continue to work together for the benefit of
they're going to have to,
and there won't be particular votes where it'll be
it's their responsibility.
If so and so is in favor of this, then I'm against it.
It's their responsibility to their constituents to not be that way.
Again, I've known councilors, some better than others, for a variety of years, going back 15. And if anybody needs any help with this, I've only known Corey Robinson since about 6 months before he announced. All right. I didn't know the guy. All these other people I've known for quite a long time. Councilor Mercier knows me, but we don't like kibitz on anything, right? Like if you're going to try to tell me that each one of these counselors is making decisions based on the merits of the subject and not aligning based on types of tribalism for a variety of motives, getting elected to mayor, setting yourself up for election to a higher office. There's a lot of things that drive why certain alignments on the city council form. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, it's how the sausage is made. It happens on Beacon Hill. It happens on Capitol Hill in DC. You do certain things and you'll vote certain ways for your benefit, long run, or your district, your whatever benefit. That's how the sausage is made. And I don't really have a problem with that necessarily. I'm just wondering, are these guys going to be making sausage?
I think they will. I know they will.
Yeah, I think at some point something will come up. It'll shift things around a little bit. It just seems how it's happened over the years, right? I mean, something else will come up people will reorganize themselves again. I don't know.
A new ADU type of thing that forces a realignment, right? It's got to be a big ticket item. Otherwise, they'll just sort of stay in their petty squabbles. But we've seen this play out before, but everybody gets caught up in sort of the sexy now. And people like the drama. It gives them something to talk about when they're bending their elbow.
It's phenomenal for Inside Lowell and talk radio and the Lowell Sun and whatnot. But harkening back to Bernie Lynch, I think the electeds need to tone it down a little. Let us, let us be the a-holes for let us pick the fights or whatever. I don't know, maybe it's a romantic thing, but I do think there's a level for a certain place for statesmanship. I don't mind people getting down and dirty. One of the counselor I'm probably most locally politically aligned with is Corey Robinson. We disagreed on ADUs, but other than that, he says the things that I say or love to, wish I could say, and he doesn't, except he's got bigger balls. He does it on the council floor, and he has to face the electorate. I only have to face a couple of folks on Facebook or
so
whatever.
Who do you think crossed the line last night?
But I think Councilor Robinson he's lost sight of the best way to lead. If I could give him advice, if he'd listen to it, I think if he went back to being the Councilor Robinson of the first year and a half in the term, and ditto, I think, for Councilor Gitcher. I've told you, I think Johnny Dakota, I think it was underlying, but I think it might have stayed hidden last night. It might have burst out between Councilor Scott and Robinson. That I don't know. I don't know when they started there, back and forth off the microphone and then went on the microphone. But I think the spark last night was Councilor Dakota. And I don't think bringing up what he brought up, I thought it was a mistake, and I love Councilor Dakota. He knows that. I like all of them. I respect them. I admire what they do. You're
talking about the behavior, not the person.
But because he made it personal, and the argument could be, well, it's been personal in the other way, and
But to do it as part of an issue that.
But to do it on the council floor, right? If it's gonna happen somewhere, I guess it should happen on social media.
So do you think if Corey's been trying to, you talked about vendetta, right? Get even with John Leahy.
I think there's a personal vendetta there, yes.
He had an appropriate fig leaf up until last night.
An appropriate fig leaf for what?
A fig leaf. You're Greek, right? Like you understand.
But how did it?
Statutes.
What's the
his motions were, and they weren't personal enough, right? Like
I think he's being completely disingenuous when he says his motions aren't personal. And I'm not the only person.
So
somebody who you respect, Ryan Johnson, said the same thing today. I think if he was trying to say, look at that motion, I filed it in January. Yeah, what was going on in January?
I think Ryan Johnson takes phone calls from a select few people, and he just regurgitates.
He doesn't take any phone calls.
I think he distills, right? Like, how does he get this information?
Look,
have you ever seen him out and about?
He listens to Inside Lowell.
Clearly, there were counselors who thought that the motion was personal. And they said it.
Of course,
Councilor Dakota, Councilor Scott, and others, I think,
because
said the same thing, voting against it.
In January, everybody struck a pose for good governance. Yep. No problemo. Then it materialized into a real person who they have to sit at the Worthen and drink Michelob Ultras and Miller Lights with. And now all of a sudden it's real. And whether it's real for that individual or they just generally don't like to piss in the punch bowl because sooner or later they're going to drink out of it, I don't know. Or if it was an alignment based on...
You think what happened in January was a serious reflection on what an ethics commission ruling could be, or was simply that was kind of the period where Councilor Robinson was integrated back in and they stopped tabling his motions? I think it was kind of like,
let me ask you something.
Just ignore it. And I think that was it. But that's not the only time Councilor Robinson has put Councilor Leahy in his crosshairs. I mean, if we're going to be honest, let's be honest here. He also brought Councilor Leahy's wife and her business into it over the Salapoli issue. I mean, that's the kind of personal stuff that, you bring somebody's wife into a discussion, there's going to be some payback.
So you threw around the word fact when you were talking about Bernie Lynch, right? Is it or is it not a fact that the property that she operates her business out of is owned by Lapoli Industries?
Yes.
Is there?
And it was owned long before Hamilton Canal.
Is there a reasonable concern of impropriety that his participation? How do you get to say that?
I mean,
it's such a small town.
So show me that she's not paying rent, and now I've got a discussion. But do we have any evidence? You want me
to prove a negative? I don't want to claim that there was anything wrong. I don't want to claim that. I've met the woman briefly. She seems fine. Okay. I know she was a big defender of Moses Johnson and the communists that rallied around her, but or him.
I'm trying to avoid solidarity Lowell till the July podcast.
All right, but
Joe, ready?
Oh yeah.
To disavow that one quickly.
It really goes back to. John was like, I called the ethics commission. I'm good. Right? Well, who knows?
But Councilor Leahy wasn't the only one that wasn't immediately ready to pull the plug on Lapoli Industries. And by the way, now none of the 11 are ready to speak about it. Remember, amazing how everybody kind of shut up. So maybe
in the executive session.
Yeah, but
after the executive session,
has anybody said boo?
Well,
so apparently these folks who are saying, "Hey, it's not as cut and dried." Maybe
the manager said boo here. You milked it out of him very skillfully, right? Because he basically said, "Well, if nothing's changed, well then nothing has changed," which means everything is still in play with Lapoli and what's going on in Hamilton.
But there was this rush to get the firing squad going right away. And as part of that discussion, there were more than just Councilor Leahy, but who, it was again, and going back to the history that we talked about earlier in this podcast, the Parks Department job, etc. There's a history between Councilor Leahy and Councilor Robinson. And it's now the second or third time that's kind of come up in motions there. So it's taken personally by some.
And today is today, and we're talking about it today, but we know, like you like to throw around, well, they do it in Boston, they do it in Fall River. Well, they did it 5 years ago, they did it 10 years ago, they did it tons 20, 30 years ago, before the cameras came on. There would be all sorts of stuff. Pulling the stuff that they did with Mayor Murphy, because Mayor Murphy sort of flouted his relationship with the existing culture, right? There's always these things. But, the lights don't shut off. And I generally, for anybody that's confused, I generally think that Tom Golden is doing a good job as city manager. I think that he needs to tighten up his ship, and I don't think he wants to crack the eggs. I think he's pussyfooting it, for lack of a better word, in the city hall.
Should he fire people? And
I can't. All I'll ever say on this is, there's a toxic culture in the city hall. I've talked enough to people that work there at a variety of levels. Mostly I talk to senior ordinance employees, but I do talk to more than a couple of rank and file folks, right? I posted not long ago about the toxic, an article that was written on a toxic culture in Beacon Hill. I think that one of the problems with constantly opting to create a city manager that can bring home the bacon is some of the mindset that lives in Boston transfers into City Hall. And that is that the speaker is the king or the city manager is the king. I think you and I went back and forth about the king, right? And that it's kind of my way or the highway, and that the city council gets kind of deferred. When Bernie Lynch was the city manager, there was a minority, but a sizable minority of the city council that badgered him, right? And constantly took him to task. And they had meetings that were 2.5, 3 hours long on the reg. Kevin Murphy became the city manager, and city council meetings went to 45 minutes. All of a sudden, everything was honky-dory in Lowell. All the councilors were just happy as a pig in shit.
It was a brand new council.
It wasn't brand new. Bernie lost the majority.
Correct.
Right. And he resigned as soon as he knew that he didn't have the majority.
Well, I mean, I think there was another side of that too. I mean, I think some people would argue that maybe some of his tactics when he had the full council kind of maybe had some blowback on him.
It did. I remember specifically when he took his budget and he paraded it around in front of the neighborhood groups, and some of the councilors were like, what the fuck, are they seeing it before? We haven't even seen it. And because Bernie decided he basically enlisted popular support, right, to try to overpower the councilors. And
it was a miscalculation.
And then there was this whole thing about the delegation. We're all pissed off about, well, Bernie Lynch doesn't communicate. Why did Bernie Lynch, who had a lot of serious connections up on Beacon Hill, have to go through, who we think, because of the whole big fish in a little pond kind of mentality, why should he go through the delegation when he can talk to the Michael Witzes or whoever that was back in the day?
If I was elected,
directly.
If I was a part of a delegation and my city manager went over me, I'd be pretty pissed.
Okay.
Look, some of the complaints about Bernie Lynch were simply that if there was an event, a ribbon cutting, a big event or whatever, Bernie Lynch took the lead and spoke. And that was a change I noticed immediately with Kevin Murphy. He led the council. He never spoke. If there was like a ribbon cutting, it was very early in the term. We did in Kevin Murphy's term, we did a 40th anniversary at the Athenian Corner, and they gave us, Tom Golden, Eileen Donahue, everybody sent us a Senate citation, a House citation, and Rodney Elliott was the mayor at the time. Rodney Elliott ran the speaking program, and Kevin Murphy never spoke. Everybody else spoke. Kevin Murphy never spoke, and I noticed that right away. And I thought, "Oh, that's smart," because that was one of the big criticisms against Bernie Lynch.
The small things bring you down.
And I notice it kind of now. Even with Eileen Donahue, there was kind of a deferral to the mayor. Even though the mayor was the ceremonial post, but as the chair of the council, and to some degree, I think Tom Golden has that as well. That kind of let the mayor run the things.
The delegation are almost trained to be deferential. It's a type of sort of conditioned humility where they're always like. You ever notice, particularly Tom does this. He'll be talking about the person that runs the launch pad for NASA in Chelmsford, right? And he'll be like, "Oh, that guy's the greatest guy. We're so fortunate to have that guy running the launch pad." He always does that, and he's not alone in doing that. I think they wrap themselves in bubble wrap, and they get pissed off with each other if they pop their bubble wrap, right? The delegation now doesn't get along like it has in the past. And
Lisa's
dysfunctional.
Lisa hasn't been any NDAs.
I'd like to say I want to add this one thing to the conversation. I think some of the dysfunction or animosity or grind that you're seeing in the city council is a function of district representation, because when it was all at large, they were all, oh, you're
Well, they
doing
were
such
all
a good job.
neighbors.
Yeah,
Well,
I know that's true. It is.
all right, but they were all pilfering each other's voter base. All right, but now, right, Dakota, what does he care? Who's he pissing off by saying that? All right, if 10 people say, oh, Dakota went too far or Robinson went too far, 8 of them don't live in their district. These people can rope-a-dope up in their districts, right? And as long as they're popular in their districts, what's going to happen to them? This whole thing with one of the we should probably talk about this a little bit too, is supposedly the replacement home rule petition, is that's on your list. I'll segue into that, right, if you want to.
Yeah, right.
We gotta drive it out.
It's 9 p.m.
Oh, I forgot what I was gonna. I was gonna use that as a segue, but it's. I forgot what I was gonna say.
You're ready to sit in this chair, Mitchell.
Huh?
You're ready to sit in this chair now. You're without me. I can just go home and sleep.
I'm thinking about it.
Good.
I got to learn how to push the buttons, but who's gonna?
It's not rocket
watch me?
science.
As long as I get more clicks than the
Badge
power hour.
can do it.
All right. As long as I get more
Friendly
clicks than the power
competition.
hour.
So
I'm going to buy some orange spray paint.
Oh, I was talking about the district councilors can just
yes,
hunker down, right? Oh, and then I was saying the replacement, right?
Let's make sure it's waterproof.
It's fine to elect somebody or to select a replacement for a vacant seat, right? Because they want to have it so that after a certain period, the council can just vote in an eligible
correct.
voter, right?
In the final year or whatever.
And that's going to be contentious.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. If the 4 of us are up,
It already is. Council Leahy hasn't gotten the job and hasn't left, and there's already behind the scenes.
Because
Jockey.
a lot of times they know this stuff is going to happen well before the public finds out, right? Like the public's always 6-9 months behind everything. But the people that are asses out in the wind on this are the at-large councilors. Okay, because who's going to get? I'll pick on Corey. All right. Corey picks, Kara Keefe to be the replacement for John Leahy, right?
One name that was brought up.
No, I know. That's why
wasn't
We
it?
brought them all up.
I like it.
I watch that show sometimes.
I like the Eileen Donahue name, by the way. That would
To come back
to come back on the council.
back?
That
Oh, yeah.
would be
to settle some scores.
that would
Yeah.
be good.
Yeah,
That would
but
be
then-
like Vicky Gunvalson coming back on Real Housewives.
It always comes back to the housewives.
Right.
But if
I got some looks from Dan Shanahan's wife though when she found out.
if the Centerville councilor votes for Kara Keefe, people can be pissed off, but they're going to throw that in and they're going to go like, all right, that was one terrible thing. Is it a deal breaker for me? No, right? But if you're at large, you take that vote. You've got 500 people pissed off at you. That's the difference between getting elected or not getting elected. So this particular option is much less of a risk for 8 councilors than it is for 3. And why nobody is really thinking about that? Because they get caught up in
Well, it's just-
stupid talking points that get pushed down from wherever they come from.
But it just has to be a majority. It doesn't have to be, it's not like it has to be like 8 to whatever. Like it's just all I need is a majority. So it's,
As soon as, unless those 3 district at-large councilors say present, a name is going to come out of their face. And councils say a lot of things, but the clerk only writes down yay or nay.
well, they should all get together and vote for the same person. That's what I would do. I'd get together and figure out who you want to do. That's a simple way to do it.
Yeah.
So is district representation working?
Yeah.
That's a discussion I've seen
Absolutely.
this week, as a matter of fact, on social media. That maybe it isn't working after all.
I think
It's no better than what we had before.
It's messy, but I think it's messy, but I think it's the best way to get actual representation for the neighborhoods. Otherwise, you're going to be, the
I still
turnout.
believe it.
It's
too.
unearthing things that need to get unearthed. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, like those 300 people that vote are really happy.
It allows councilors to stand their ground.
Yeah.
They don't have to drive to the middle to be the most popular person or one of the 9 most popular people. There are some bad sides about it with not enough people, because there's a lot of docile political behavior, for as ballsy as Lowell can be and tough, There's a lot of people that tuck their tails because they're afraid of backlash from the political culture. So they won't test an incumbent unless you're just a goofball. Some of these people are just goofballs, right? I'm sorry, goofball, but or two. It is a good system, and I think ultimately it's a precursor for a strong mayor.
We ultimately agree.
Oh God, I hate
On
that
top of
idea.
there. All right.
Worst
I'm gonna
idea
wrap
ever.
it up here with one exception. Michaela,
Yes.
as chairperson of the
Oh,
Sustainability
yes.
Council.
Thank you.
We need to do the announcements at the beginning.
Yeah. I missed the ball.
Half of the people-
Wait.
It's an hour and a half in. They may
Do I
not
have
be
to-
watching anymore.
Do I have to shut the lights off?
If you're still here, we have a little sustainability council meeting tomorrow night at 6:30 in the mayor's reception room. All are welcome, and we're going to be talking about the Lowell forward plan, and the environmental and sustainability stuff that's in there, and good stuff.
What do you guys discuss in your meetings? I'm just curious.
We have last meeting we had transportation engineer come down and talk about your presentation on bike mobility, and that was like the big part. Why are you laughing? It's great.
People still ride their bicycles through
Big
Lowell?
hug. Yeah, I almost rode my bike here, but I left
Do
it
they
here.
count? Do dirt bikes count?
No,
Bikeability?
no.
No dirt bike.
Lowell has really amazing bike paths, like really awesome.
Yeah, Middlesex Street.
The Bruce Freeman Trail is phenomenal.
I'm talking about downtown by you go past the Athenian Corner. It's like close by the Worthern, right? I'm mentioning all your restaurants. You go by Sophia's Bakery, and then you go through
That's a
that
bike
little
path?
there's a little place all along the canal, and then you come out by the sandwich shop.
Was it mocked?
You just go. Yeah, it's marked. You just I don't know. You just go. It's a
Do the
different.
homeless know about
It's a
this
different
plan?
way to see this. It's a different way to see the city, and it's like just a great. It's great. We get a bike more. Maybe we'll all do a pod squad field trip.
Have you guys talked at all about the jet skis as a alternative mode of
You
transportation?
know what? If you come to one of our meetings, Badge, I'll put that. I'll ask. To
I
put
can't,
that
I'm
on
from
the agenda.
Chelmsford.
Oh,
That
I'm
just
too-
pissed off enough woke people for 1 week.
Yes, that's true.
We make the
a little time
Sustainability Council an unofficial, what do you call them? These people?
sponsor?
Of the Pod Squad?
I don't know. We gotta see if we have a budget this year.
Yeah,
No.
How can we do like a
No, he
free?
does it for free.
We'll give you a trade.
Oh, nice.
We'll
I
give
like
you a trade agreement.
By the way, if you want to see a really nice park, the one over by my house in Vinyl Square in North Chelmsford, that thing is pristine.
Which one?
The one by the boathouse. Not the boathouse. There's a bathhouse and there's the beach. But that baseball field, yeah, it's gorgeous. I've
Oh,
never.
they don't let my kid play there because the ones I've gone to,
I think it's for like the older teams.
they're actually hold on, let me get the right. Oh, that's the right there. That's not one of the parks in Lowell on social media, by the way. That's
It looks like a lot of dirt.
Strawberry Field Road with the grass in the infield there. Hold on, let's call up another one here. This was the tree growing in the Orioles dugout.
Oh boy.
Shade.
Yeah, they're stamping out the effects of heat islands.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
second base going into like
Yeah.
home plate and whatnot. That's
Oh, boy.
Chelmsford.
I don't know a lot about ball fields, but I don't think they're supposed to have that much dirt.
So when I tell you, and by the way, it was the same tonight at Roberts Field. But so when I tell folks that I think this is just a function of how government can no longer do this stuff unless parents and of these little leagues and whatnot start to get involved and do. I think Kim Scott talked about it today. We talked about it with her.
Yeah.
That some of these leagues or parent groups or whatever are going to have to get involved. I don't think the cities can maintain them or towns.
We need
for that
goats.
matter.
What about
But
the Lowell Litter Crew? Why don't we enlist them to do ballparks?
They're busy cleaning up the streets. Actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Get some goats.
What
Put
if
some
there was
goats in the park.
What if there was a nonprofit organization that could do that? Would the city, would the Parks Union be okay with that though? That's potentially lost jobs.
Wait,
right?
you want a nonprofit to come help you out with the fields? Am I hearing this correctly?
Concerned citizens.
Are we okay leading on not? You're okay with
No,
leading on
I'm
nonprofits?
concerned citizens, volunteer.
I'm just very happy to hear this. I just
When-
need to make sure I heard that.
When mid-level management in the city government is firing at 87%, then we should have this conversation.
Hey, C's get degrees, baby.
All right. Jack Mitchell, Michaela Hondas McCarthy, Batch, Mike Chipalupo, the Pod Squad.
All right.
Thank you for being here. Thank all of you for joining us as well on our latest Pod Squad. Probably pissed a few people off, didn't we? I can't wait to see social media after I post this tomorrow morning. Till next time, everybody stay safe.
Did you bike down?
No,